So the third image is a way more, let's just say, suited up image. You're in a very large hall. Half of the image is the ceiling with the sort of halogen fluorescent lighting. The bottom half looks like a UN style hall with massive desks, probably 100 to 200 people, I guess, in attendance. Everybody is in their fine office dress. Somebody who looks remarkably like you seems to be speaking, and people are paying attention. So what's this story?
So this is at the UN headquarters in Bangkok last November.
Oh, wow.
It is the UN. And we were... this is our Plasticity Forum, which is a conference I founded at the Rio Earth Summit in 2012. It's the only event, even today, which is pretty amazing, that solely focuses on solutions and innovations for second life plastic.
Okay.
Which means making sure plastic does not become waste. It can become fuel, it can become aggregate for concrete, asphalt, tables, iPhones. Fabric, doesn't matter, but people are not doing it at the scale that we need to be doing that. And so we've had it in 13 cities around the world since then. And last year we had 3 events. And one was in Fiji last year, and that was for small island nations and small communities around the world, technologies and solutions for them. That's important because most municipalities around the world are small. If you're not in a mega city like Hong Kong or New York or London, which already has infrastructure and all kinds of capacities, the smaller municipalities don't get those technologies and the grinders and the shredders you need to take recycling up to the next level.
You've been doing this for 12 years, right? Okay. So let's go back to what inspired a start for you to say, you know what, I'm going to move into action.
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. When I was here more than 12 years ago, I was doing some work with new startup companies trying to get into their technologies. So one of them was with wave energy, ocean wave energy, and which I really believe in. It's a very under-entrepreneured renewable energy, but 1,000 times more powerful than wind because of the density of water, but very tricky to work with. And at that time is when I heard about the North Pacific gyre and the plastic in the ocean for the first time, and I said, what is this? I never even heard of it. And I thought of myself as fairly knowledgeable about global environmental issues. And so it happened to be that I went to San Francisco for my dad's birthday, and I met 2 other like-minded people who said, oh, we have this idea and we have this idea. And within a day, we had a 150-foot tall ship dedicated to our trip to go out to the Pacific and do an expedition to see the plastic.
Amazing.
And we thought, how comes no one's filming this? But the reason that got me over the edge is I was in Palau diving on a far, far, far reef. There was no islands nearby. And at 20 meters down, I was picking plastic out of the water column that was floating by me, a bit like the monk in Cambodia picking it off the tree. Oh, wow. And I said, why? Where is this stuff coming from? Crystal clear water. At the end of the world, and that's when I said, this is really bad.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought, let's do this expedition. So we raised money during the economic crisis in 2008. And we did a great thing is we brought Scripps Oceanography along with us. And they're the most famous ocean institute in the world, or one of them. So before that, a lot of this topic of plastic in the ocean came from NGOs, and there was no science, so the industry could sort of
say whatever. We
don't really believe it. Go do some more studies, waste another 5 years, another 10 years.
Yeah.
We brought Scripps along, and all of a sudden this thing got set in stone that, oh my gosh, this is real and we cannot argue with it. So what's going to happen? And that's what set me off on this trajectory. So in 2012, I launched this side event in Rio. Many people thought it was the best side event in the whole conference because most of the side events were your normal discussion about deforestation and the problems with the ecosystem and we need more money. And ours was all about solutions and what's already happening and let's move faster. We're all adults. This is what's going on. And it was interesting because at that event, I got asked to speak on a panel with the UN and the main person representing the U.S. Plastic Council.
Oh, wow,
And I
wow,
sat
wow.
between the two of them.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like, wow, this is happening, and it's real.
How about if we rewind a decade from there? In a sense, what I'm trying to get is like there's something inside you, your core values, the foundation. Professionally, this is kind of what I do as a consultant. So if we go back and back and back to, say, 10, 15, 20 years old, what kind of person were you that gets reflected in this way so many decades later?
Well, I think it's a good point. So some people, like I did this webinar last night, and Andrea just was here, and she said, I can't believe you do all these different things. And I think somehow I have this ability to be a translator. I feel like a conductor of an orchestra. And there's a guy playing the oboe, there's someone playing the drums, and someone playing the flute, and someone playing the bugle. And you got to get them all together. And that's what I'm big in sports, so I have a whole sports genre following. I have a business background. I have an MBA from Wharton. I was in the finance industry here. I actually set up Merrill Lynch's first framework for a global environmental tech fund in '98.
Wow.
Which was before Al Gore was even talking about climate change. Because I was out in Asia and I saw that the only way to change these things is through technology.
Okay.
And it's not digital technology, where everyone had a brain rush about going into the internet, but they forgot about water technology and machines that do all these things. So I think I have a master's in international relations, and I studied environmental economics. So in my head, I always wanted to do something big for the environment.
Wow.
I just didn't have the capacity in those early days how to move the dial.
Wow.
But I think I'm quite good at connecting different people. So when I speak at events, and maybe a few people come to me, and I always remember, oh, that person will be good for this thing, and that person's good for that. And then when the time comes to match people together, then you get this big boom effect. It's just like 1 + 1 + 1 = 8. My biggest neat story on this one is I went to do plasticity in Shanghai, and I basically did a secret attack on the world's biggest plastic conference. So China Plas is the world's biggest plastic trade show. And I got introduced to the organizers who were from Hong Kong, and I said, I think we should do plasticity because it's about recycling and corporate social responsibility, it's greening. China needs this discussion. And they said, no, we don't think it's ready yet. Thank you very much, it's not ready. And when they said that, I said, sorry, but I think China is ready. And I don't think you have your foot to the ground.
Yeah.
And so I went ahead and did it anyway.
Oh, good for you.
And about 2 months later, it turns out that the World Plastic Council has been courting China to become a member of the World Plastic Council. And they really wanted to lure China into their membership. And China joined. And so I went back, and this group, World Plastic Council, was supporting our group because they understand we have a very good discussion that's reasonable about how to solve these problems. And so I went back to the organizer of China Plastic and said, well, China Chemical Association is now supporting our event.
Right.
Yeah, I think you should probably too.
Yeah.
So they backtracked and they ended up supporting. So we basically gazumped them, and we put it right in downtown Shanghai and got all the officials from their big event came to ours. And I guess the compliment is now they're copying our event and now they're doing it themselves. I
really hope whoever's listening to this is getting inspired, because, man, that's so good. That's so inspiring. Was there an outcome out of this particular meeting that you thought really was a big positive step forward? Well,
when we have these one-day conferences, it's about getting people together and having people meet each other in groups that never would talk together.
Okay.
So it's not as if we're trying to create a big policy or mantra. This is sharing. I gave an example yesterday of one of my events in Sydney we did. And a guy came up to me right at the end. He says, "Hi, Doug. That's a great conference. I said, oh, what do you do? He says, oh, I make surfboard equipment. And I said, like what? And he says, oh, I make handboards for body surfing. And I said, well, I've been body surfing for 30 years. I've always wanted, what's yours look like? Oh, mine's a wood one. And I said, why don't you make it out of recycled plastic? I've been wanting to do this for 10 years, but I didn't know how to make the mold, and I didn't know a brand. And he said, yeah, I'd love to do that too, but I didn't know how to do it. And I looked in the room, like this photo. Nice. I said, that guy knows how to grind it.
Oh, amazing.
He has the molder. You have the brand. We have the story. Within 5 minutes, we created this, and it's now a marketed product in the first one. And that came within 5 minutes.
Wow.
And that's what we do at these kind of events.
For Cambodia, just because I was looking into precious plastics. Have you heard of precious plastics?
Yes.
Sure, yeah. Okay. So in Cambodia, is that part of the idea is to kind of create these sort of localized processing, or do you want to have more of a centralized processing?
It would be localized to the extent that Cambodia is still quite underdeveloped, and the roads are dirt in many places, and they're long distances. So what you need to do with recycling is let each village or community somehow get up the value chain of the recycling system. So instead of having a big pile of plastic bags that fly around, you want them to clean them and shred them and compress them. So then the guy with the truck will come and say, okay, I'll come and I'll get your 10 tons, not your 10 kilos.
Right.
So then that village has something to sell or trade. And then it gets into the system, and the next guy's out. So we need to get them these facilities to basically bring them up that value chain. So what we want to do with our concrete synthetic aggregate, which is an additive into the concrete, which makes it stronger, lighter, and it absorbs all of this mixed dirty plastic, which will never, ever, ever, ever get recycled. And 90% of the world's plastic today, globally, does not get recycled.
Wow.
So when you read those little recycling things on the bottom of a package and it says, I'm recyclable, that doesn't mean anything. Because if the city, like Hong Kong's a great example of a bad place for recycling, does not have the capacity to recycle it, it doesn't get recycled. So when companies export their products to 150 countries, if 148 of them cannot recycle it, it's like a carpet bombing with your deteriorates and your stuff that lasts forever, and that needs to somehow change.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.